I had about I think it was a 30% chance of it raining yesterday, and it ended up raining. I ended up getting about a half an inch or something like that. And it's well, I mean, the whole big idea right now is that I'm looking to liquidate the animals this weekend. So I'll still have to do that. It looks like I'll have to figure it out. It's going to be very muddy. But these animals, I actually realized last night that I was taking a good hard look at the animals, and about 20% of my animals are actually bloating. And you can actually see this animal right here, she's kind of bloating, but about 20% of the animals are bloating. And so I've actually reduced the amount of feed that I'm giving them. The animals are obviously they're conditioning very well. They're putting on weight very well. About 20% of the animals are bloating, and so I've actually reduced the amount of grain that they're getting by about half. So I'm not feeding them grain in the morning. And so this morning I was taking a look at my numbers. I was taking a look at my expenses and my income, and I'm looking to liquidate about 4 animals this weekend. I'm looking to liquidate about another 4 animals on Monday. And so I was taking a look at my income, and I was taking a look at my expenses, and I got numbers for you for right now in terms of this month, because the month is already halfway over, right? I mean, the month is already halfway over. And so I was taking a look at my expenses, and I was taking a look at everything, and it looks like for this month and next month, I'm gonna average about $1,250 a month for expenses. And actually, I'll just break it down for you. This month so far, I've bought 1 tonnage of fertilizer. I bought 1 tonnage of fertilizer, and that tonnage of fertilizer cost me $550. It was $554 and change. Okay, it was effectively $550. I paid $550 for that tonnage of fertilizer. I got barrels of grain, and I paid $75 a barrel, and I'm feeding half a barrel a day. So I'm feeding $37 worth of grain a day. I'm feeding $37.50 worth of grain a day, and I used $550, and I've been I've only been feeding that grain for 3 days now. So I spent $100 on that grain so far. I spent about $110 on that grain so far, and I'm paying about a 30% premium for that grain. But I actually need to go ahead and liquidate animals and buy the other grain, because this grain is an all stock pellet. It's not a total mixed ration, and I would anticipate that for about 2 weeks. It's supposed to get very cold on Wednesday. It's supposed to drop down to about 15 degrees. And so when it turns 15 degrees, the grass is going to die, and I will probably have to put the animals on a total mixed ration for about 2 weeks until the grass grows back. And then I'm also looking to fertilize my new field. I got a rental property, a lease property, and I'm taking a look at that too. I still got to get in contact with the owner about that, and I'm looking at doing the lease property, and I might actually even have a second lease property. I found another one, and it's up by the fertilizer yard. It's up by the place where I buy fertilizer. It's right by there. So I was like, I could do a second lease property over here, because, if I'm gonna be over here buying fertilizer anyway, then I might as well just, swing by the field and get myself a second lease property. It's about 40 acres as well. And so I might have a second lease property, and it's up by the fertilizer yard, so that's very good. That makes it very convenient for me. I'm gonna go and meet the owner about that one, and then I gotta go meet them about that this weekend. And I'm looking to buy myself my own field too. And actually, and I was gonna talk about this, the whole thing. Let's just take a look at how much money I make, and let's take a look at how much money it costs me. So I would anticipate that I'm gonna end up liquidating about 7 animals this month. I'm gonna end up liquidating about 7 animals. I've already liquidated 3, and I'm gonna liquidate 4 more. I would say that my business, and at the end of the day, the whole big idea is, and I've talked about this in terms of like my bigger view on things, is that, and I talked about it in this fashion, that, like me having succeeded is very important, right? I believe that it is very important that I succeeded, right? My success is very important. Right, it's important that I continue to succeed, and et cetera, et cetera. But on the global, on like the cosmic scale of things, it's more important that more people succeed. Like and I've talked about this. Like I should not be in a situation that where like legitimately I don't know anybody that's even doing 10%. Like that's not good, right? I mean, I legitimately don't know anybody that's even doing 10%. That's not good, right? Like there's no reason for that to be happening. And so, I talked about this in terms of a big overall perspective of things, and the big idea is not just for me to be able to do this, but it's for other people to be able to do this too, right? That's the big idea. At the end of the day, you should, if you're watching this and, you're watching my videos, the big idea is that, and I may have to sell this animal. This animal's actually got sharp horns, and she's actually sticking her horns in my leg. But the whole big idea is that, it should not just be me. All right, I don't know how I ended up in the situation where it's like legitimately just me. I don't know anybody that's even doing 10%. Like that should not be happening. All right, that's not good. There's no good excuse for that. There's no reason that should be happening. All right, and let's just take it. And the whole big idea is not for me to just be able to do this, but it's for everybody to be, for more or less for more people to be able to do this. And I talked about this in terms of a big idea, and I call this what? Being aware of the money, right? Being aware that money is involved. So if I am selling 7 animals a month, and I'm buying 1 tonnage of fertilizer, I need to buy 1 tonnage of fertilizer, and I need to buy half a load of grain. What does it cost me, and how much money do I make? Right? Just figure that out for yourself. This is not, and I've always said that money is not debatable. Money is not an opinion. Right? It is legitimately just a fact. It's like a fact. It's a number that's going into your bank account and going out of your bank account. It is not an opinion. So if I sell 7 animals at 650 pounds, and I buy 1 tonnage of fertilizer, and I buy half a load of grain, how much money do I make? Right? Figure it out for yourself. 1 tonnage of fertilizer is $550. Half a load of grain is about $1,100. Right? And I'm not using any leverage. The numbers are very easy. So I would make about $11,000, and it would cost me about $1,500. My net profit is about $9,500. That's how much money I make for the month. Is that all of the money that I make for the month? No, it is not all of the money that I make for the month. I'm not liquidating all of my animals. Right? I mean, it's like, you got to really start developing an idea of how to think about these things, for yourself. I should not be the only person, whatever, right? I've just determined that if I have about $10,000 a month off of this business, I can pull $10,000 a month off of this business without causing any damage. Right, I can pull about $10,000 a month off of this business and not damage my business. All right, I can pull about $10,000 a month off of my business and just continue to be whatever. Right, I can just use some of the money. I can buy some more cattle, whatever I need to do. I can pull about $10,000 a month off of my business and not have any problems. Right, I'm not gonna be force liquidating assets. My business is not gonna. I'm not gonna be having problems in my business. I'm just pulling. I've determined that $10,000 a month is what I can pull off of my business. All right, is it all of the money that my business makes? No, it's not all of the money that my business makes. If I actually take a look at my overall income, like if I was legitimately going to maximize my cash position, which I've already said that there is no reason to do that. I talk about this all the time. But if I were going to liquidate, and here's a very honest way to look at it. If at the end of the year, let's just say I just continue my business, and at the end of the year, I've decided that I just want to maximize my cash position. For whatever reason, I've decided that that's what I want to do. There's no reason to do that. If you do that, you're going to pay the most in taxes, and that cash is not going to do anything. Right? I talk about this all the time. If you have $200,000 cash, and you're sitting there with $200,000 cash, that $200,000 cash will be $200,000 cash forever. And in reality, you'll actually probably lose some of your money because of inflation. All right, I legitimately think that inflation is going to be kind of bad for about, and it's not going to be because of tariffs. It's going to be because of an excess amount of, money supply. All right, it's not going to be because of tariffs. Tariffs are not going to. If tariffs make the inflation worse, it's not going to be like an expansion of the money supply type inflation. All right, it's going to be like the supply chain is having problems. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, tariffs. I mean, But at the end of the day, I mean, tariffs are not going to cause skyrocketing inflation. Don't kid yourself. I mean, don't be an idiot. All right, tariffs are not going to expand the money supply. All right, that's not how it works. All right, I think that when I take a look at everything, inflation is probably going to be pretty bad for about 10 years, and with how much that's what I see. Okay. And, I've already talked about, the whole idea, and I went into Coca-Cola with the whole thing, right? Why do I think Coca-Cola is such a good company in terms of high inflation? And why do I think Coca-Cola is such a good company? Because even if you inflated the price of Coca-Cola by 25%, people would still buy it. I guarantee it. Even if you took that can of Coca-Cola and it was no longer $1, and you started selling it for $1.25, people would still buy it. And the company produces a 3% dividend every single year. If the price of the stock legitimately went sideways forever, and you held on to the thing for 30 years, 25 years, you would double your money, right? I mean, it's a fantastic company in terms of just being an overall company, and the high inflation environment. I think inflation is going to be a problem for probably about 10 years. And it's not going to be because of tariffs. It's just going to be because there is a massive amount of money just moving around, right? I mean, there was trillions of dollars being pumped into the economy, and stimulus and everything, right? And so, do I think that it's going to turn into some cataclysmic event? No, I don't. Why do I think it's going to be the end of the financial world as we know it? No, I don't. Oh my God, it's doomsday? No, it's not. It's just going to be some high inflation. All right, the inflation is just going to be a little bit bad. That's what I see. Maybe it's for 5 years. All right, but right now is not exactly a phenomenal time to be holding on to cash. Okay, it's not. But and let's just say but let's just do a thought experiment. And it's like, if you because it's like, and I've always said that the whole thing about the poor mentality is that a lot of the time when you have somebody who is legitimately poor, they will only see cash as money. Legitimately, that's one of the big financial flaws in terms of like the poor mindset, because there are a lot of ways to have money. You don't need just cash. Cash is the most ridiculous way to have money. Right? I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where you legitimately think that cash is money, and cash is the only way to have money. It's not the only way to have money. It is the most ridiculous way to have money. All right? You don't want to be in a situation where you legitimately think that cash is the only way to have money. All right? But let's just talk about it in terms of a thought experiment. Let's just say I just continued forward. I just went and ran my business for the entire year. And on December 31st, on the very last day of December, I decided that I was just going to sit on maximum cash. I've decided that I want to sit on maximum cash. I've forfeited the idea of doing anything else except for sitting on maximum. Oh my God, I just want to sit on cash. I just want cash. Right? You see how ridiculous that sounds when I say it? It's completely ridiculous. There is no way, or there is no reason to think about maximizing your cash portfolio. The way that I think about cash is, if I pull $10,000 a month out of my business, I can keep 90% of my investments, right? I'm going to be liquidating, whatever, right? I can keep 80% of my investments. I can actually buy, a replacement investment, and I will still have whatever, right? I mean, $7,000 a month left over. And also the investments that I put my money into, that is all my money. I am not taking any more leverage, not for a couple of months. So if I legitimately wanted the money back, oh my God, I just want to sit on cash. I legitimately just want the money back. Then I could just liquidate my investment. It does not matter. It's all the same thing. Cash is not the only way to make money. It is the most ridiculous way to make money. You're going to get taxed like crazy. And, you know, and at the end of the day, you're probably going to even lose a good portion of it because of inflation. All right, but let's just do a thought experiment. Let's just say that I've decided that that's what I wanted to do. That's what I'm going to do, right? End of the year, last day of the year, I have decided I am just going to sit on maximum cash. I'm going to liquidate everything and I'm just going to sit on cash. How much cash do you think I will have? You know, how much cash will there be? You know, it'll probably be somewhere around $250,000, okay? It'll probably be about $250,000. But there's no reason for me to sit around with cash. All right, you know, realistically, you know, if you know, and I've talked about this in terms of a bigger idea. You shouldn't even think about, you know, it's kind of ridiculous to think about making whatever, right? I mean, you know, oh my God, $10 million. Oh my God, $5 million. Oh my God, $100 million. In reality, if you have $15,000 a month, you can, and you're not an idiot, you can effectively, I mean, granted that you're not an idiot, you can effectively do anything on the entire planet. Let's say that you want to buy whatever. You want to buy yourself a, you can effectively do anything on the entire planet. You live on $10,000 a month and you invest $5,000. You do that for whatever, 5 years. Congratulations, right? I mean, you know, you're a multi-millionaire. You can do whatever the heck you want to. I mean, it's not just me, it's everybody. I've always talked about this in terms of a broader idea, is that this is not just, it's not, the thing about America is that if you legitimately want to whatever, if you want to go and you want to start yourself a cattle business, if you want to start yourself a stock portfolio, if you want to go and whatever it is, you can go and do it. Nobody's stopping you. It's a free country. All right, I'm not the only person who has access to this. If you legitimately want, and I've always said that in terms of a cattle business, like when you take a look at, and actually let's talk about this right now, because, I have my numbers, right? I have my numbers, I have my revenue, I have my my income, and I have my balance sheet and everything. So let's just talk about my numbers. This business costs me $1,250, $1,500 a month to run. That's legitimately what it cost me, honest to God. That's what it cost me. All right, it cost me $1,200 a month to run. And it makes me $11,000 a month. It makes me $12,000 a month. And that's not even all of the money that I make. That's just the amount of money that I'm pulling out of my business. Right? That's the amount of money that I've determined I can pull out of my business, and it is not going to damage my business at all. It's not going to cause any problems for my business. I can actually even expand my business while I pull this money out of my herd if I felt like it. And I'm not even going to use any leverage at all. And this is how much money I'm making. And I talked about this in terms of a broader perspective, in terms of actually looking at this, and the whole situation is that the farming itself is actually so difficult that you won't be able to do it. Almost everybody can make $1,200 a month. Almost everybody. 98% of the population of the earth can make $1,200 a month. But turning that $1,200 a month into, $15,000, $20,000 a month by starting a cattle business, not many people can do that. And there's a reason for that. The farming is almost impossible. I don't know how else to put this. I mean, if and I am being legitimately just 100% sincere. I'm being 100% honest about this. Right? I mean, this farm, it costs me $1,000, maybe, and I've talked about this on the average. This farm, over the long average costs me about $1,500 a month. Right? It costs me about $1,500 a month, and I don't care about what it costs. I talk about this all the time. In reality, this farm doesn't cost me anything. It makes me money. And let's take a look at my revenue. Right, I'll generate almost $12,000, $11,000 a month. Right, I mean, I don't know how else to put that. I just take the $1,500 out of the $12,000 that I make, out of the $11,000 that I make. All right, I just take the money out of there, and then I just whatever, right? Now I buy, and in this situation, I don't even consider grain to be an expense. All right, grain is not an expense. In reality, when I look at grain, the way that I look at it is, oh, if I put $2,000 into this grain, if I buy 2 months worth of grain for $2,000, by the time I have fed the grain to the animals properly, right, I am utilizing the proper grain supplement, and I am feeding the animals properly. I'm not just feeding them random grain. I am giving them, a good ration and everything, and supplementing it with grass, etc. I'm definitely, I've always said that you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to really make money in the cattle business unless you can actually grow grass. Right, and I talked about this, there's almost, and the way that I spoke about this is that there is almost a 100% correlation between how much money my business makes and how much biomass my grass is accumulating. There's almost a 100% correlation. If you were to put a graph, if there was a graph of how much biomass is being accumulated by my field in terms of grass, and the amount of money that my farm makes, they would almost always move in the same direction. All right, and growing grass is not easy. You use the wrong fertilizer, your grass is not going to grow right. You don't use the right fertilizer, you don't plant the right type of grass, your animals are not going to condition properly. All right, there's a lot of things that happen. All right, and there's a lot of things that can happen. All right, growing grass is not easy. All right, you fertilize your field too much, and the feed values of your grass are astronomical. Now your animals are having health problems because the feed values of the grass are too high. Right, I mean, there are a lot of things that can happen, and it is not easy. And I talked about this in terms of a reality sense. There is a reason why I have not seen anybody even do 10%. There's a reason for that. Almost everybody, if you legitimately gave them the opportunity to make an extra $20,000 a month, everybody would take it. But there's a reason why nobody has taken it, other than me. It's because the work is practically impossible. All right, you're going to have to learn how to run cattle. You're going to have to learn how to, cattle antibiotics. You're going to have to learn how to do cattle medication. You're going to have to learn to source your animals. You're going to have to learn to look at the commodity markets. You're going to have to learn how to run your own business. You're going to have to learn to grow your own grass. Most people cannot do it. Cannot do it. Somewhere along the way, they will fail and then they will quit. I've already talked about this. In terms of a reality sense, like, the average person could learn how to do 90% of this, but you would have to be effectively in a situation where you are extremely committed to the idea. Or you started when you were like very young, right? And then, you learned it like via a game. Right, I mean, because after a certain point, it's not a game, right? I mean, I've always said that in terms of, like, when you take a look at my situation, I legitimately run a multi-million-dollar business by myself. I don't have people running around helping me. I go and I buy my own cattle. I grow the grass for myself. I put the animals' feed together myself. I do everything by myself. All right, and a majority, I do about 99% of everything by myself, 98%. All right, and I make over, if I were legitimately going to estimate how much money I make on this farm, it would be somewhere around 15 and 20 grand a month, maybe even a little bit higher. All right, and I've already talked about the big idea of cash. There is no reason to have a stockpile, a massive stockpile. Cash is not going to do anything, right? It's not going to do anything. The cash is not going to do anything. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to look at it. I mean, it's not going to do anything, But that's effectively how I run my business, right? I've determined that $10,000 a month is how much money I want to pull out of my business, right? That's how much money I want to pull out of my business. That's what I've determined. And so, that's how much money I'm going to pull out of my business. That's how much money I can pull out of my business without causing any damage. And so, but that's the whole thing about grain, right? A grain is like, and that's how I think about a lot of things, right? That's how I think about land. That's how I think about cattle. I talk about this all the time. If it makes more money than it costs you, then why wouldn't you do it? right? And I bring this up all the time, right? Like the cattle, I'm like me, when I go to the sell barn and I buy an animal and I pay $850 for that animal, I'm not concerned about the $850 because when I sell the animal, I'm going to get like 1,700 back. I'm not concerned about the $850, okay? I'm more concerned about, oh, is this the right type of animal? Number 1 to 1.5 type, medium, large frame. Oh, does this animal, is this animal selling for a roughly, good appraisal value? What does my grass look like right now? What do I think my grass is going to look like next month? That's the kind of stuff that I think about. I don't go, oh my God, $850, I can't do it. I don't even worry about the cost. And I've talked about this all the time. This does not cost me anything. This costs me nothing. This makes me a ballistic amount of money. I don't even know how much money I make. I make enough to not worry about money. And in honest, in complete 100% honest, sincerity, honest to God, this farm costs about $1,500 a month. When my expenses are sky high, they're closer to about 2,000. Maybe it costs me 2,000. It costs me about $2,000 a month. When my expenses are sky high, it costs me about 2,000. But like as of right now, like as of right this moment, when I take a look at my numbers, my farm costs about 1,200, 1,400. All right, it costs about 1,200, 1,400, and I would anticipate that I make somewhere around $10,000 and $11,000. All right, that's what my numbers look like. And let's say I sell 7 animals and I make whatever 11,000. Right, I sell 7 animals and I make 11,000. With that 11,000, I can actually probably buy 12 animals. All right, I can probably buy 12. And that's am I gonna go and buy another 12 animals right this moment? No, I'm not. Right, I mean, my facilities are not set up for that. And that's with me using zero leverage. And and I've always said that if I really want the money back, oh my God, I just need more cash. I just need more cash. Right? And maybe when I say it, it will sound ridiculous, and then you'll understand. It's like, oh my God, that's actually very idiotic. It's actually very dumb. Oh my God, I need more cash. Oh my God, cash. Cash is money. Maybe when I say it, you'll realize that it's very idiotic. There is no reason for me to sit around with a maximum amount of cash. There's no reason to do that. It's not going to do anything. And that's what, it's like, why are we talking about cash? I have plenty of cash. I can already buy whatever, anything. All right. It doesn't matter. I'm more thinking about my investments. Are my investments, what is the appraisal value of the what is the net appraisal value of my investments? Right? Are my investments profitable? What do I think the weather's going to be like for the next month? Do I think that it's going to be time to start growing grass? What is the average weight of the animals going to market? What is their body conditioning score? That's the kind of stuff that I think about. I don't sit there and go, oh my God, I want to maximize my cash output and I can't do anything because it's going to cost me $1,000. All right, but honest to God, that's the situation that I'm in, okay? This farm costs about $1,500, and I've been saying this for a long time. If I go to the fertilizer yard and I buy 1 tonnage of fertilizer, what does that cost me? About $550. All right, about $550. And how do you check the price of that? You go on the commodity market and you check the price of urea. That's how you do it. Fertilizer is a global commodity. All right, and how many units of fertilizer are in 1 tonnage of fertilizer, roughly estimate, using urea, right? I always use urea as the baseline. If I bought 1 tonnage of urea, how many units of fertilizer are in that tonnage of urea? 920. If I was going to get a rough estimate, and am I saying that I put straight urea on my field? No, I don't. But if I was going to give a rough estimate idea for how much fertilizer would I have to use in terms of a unit per acre per month on a rough estimate, considering that the weather is somewhat decent, what are the numbers? All right, well, what is the total amount of fertilizer units that I would have to use? Granted that the weather is somewhat optimal, not completely optimal, but not bad. You know, and what is that situation? It's about 3 to 4 inches of rain a month. If I get 3 to 4 inches of rain a month, and the weather is somewhere between somewhere between 45, 55 in the evening and somewhere between 65, 75 in the afternoon, then that is what I would consider roughly optimal values. Well, not roughly optimal, roughly average values. I mean, if you increase the amount of water that was on the field, it would increase the biomass accumulation. Like if I ended up getting 5-7 inches of rain instead of 3 or 4, then yes, I could utilize more fertilizer because the grass would not be limited by the amount of water, right? And the grass would grow more because there's more water on the field. Right, and so, you know, and I go over all this stuff. The information has not changed at all. Right, and if you use fertilizer, you know, how many units, you know, so 1 tonnage of urea is about 920 units of fertilizer. Right, like if you're going to, you know, fertilize grass, what is roughly, you know, a rough idea of the fertilizer ratio that you will need to utilize? A 5-1-3. And if you were going to put a 5-1-3 fertilizer on your field with roughly decent average weather conditions, how much fertilizer would I suggest that you put on your field? Probably about 35 pounds of nitrogen a month. 35, 50 pounds, something like that. You know, is roughly about 250 pounds. You know, you really want to be using about the 250 pounds over a course of about 7 months. Over a course of about 6-7 months, you want to use about 250 pounds of urea, or excuse me, not urea, of nitrogen. And then you utilize that nitrogen on a 5-1-3 ratio roughly. Is that the answer for everybody? No, it is not the answer for everybody. There are a lot of soil conditions. You may have a sandy soil, right? You have to understand that I have a clay loam soil. I have a clay loam soil. You know, my soil is clay. And if you have sandy soil, you know, you're going to have to reduce the amount of fertilizer that you put on your field every single application, because the fertilizer will go through your field faster. Right? I mean, there are a lot of things. I'm just giving you general ideas. All right, something to just to consider, just to think about. All right, fertilizers are positively and negatively charged. There are a lot of things to consider. All right, but you know, at the end of the day, and I always put an emphasis on always learn to grow the grass first, because if you learn to grow the grass, I would almost guarantee that it's about, you know, here in Texas, our corn is actually over the commodity average. To buy corn in Texas, it costs more than it does on the commodity average. Our corn is sold at a premium. Our feedstuffs are effectively sold at a premium. We don't really have much groundwater in the area. So, I mean, you know, if you don't, but on the other hand, our land is very cheap. On the other hand, our land is pretty cheap. And our natural weather conditions will actually grow grass for about 7 months out of the year. You can actually grow grass here in Central Texas without any irrigation equipment for about 7 months out of the year. You can just grow grass. You don't need any irrigation equipment or nothing. Our natural weather conditions will actually just grow grass. All right, and so, you know, it's like you got to, you know, in terms of the whole shebang idea, you know, growing grass is what makes me so much money. All right, if I did not have the grass, I could not run the cattle business. But learning how to grow grass is going to take a very long time. It's not easy. There are many things that need to be considered depending on what the weather is happening. Depending on what is happening with the weather, you'll have to, depending on what your soil preparations are, what your tilling equipment is, and et cetera, what kind of fertilizer do you think you need to use, and are you diagnosing your mineral deficiencies properly? All of this stuff takes a long time to learn, and I've talked about this in terms but can you learn it? Absolutely you can. 90% of the world, 90%, and I talked about this, can the average person learn how to do 90% of this? Absolutely. But it's going to take a long time. It is going to take a long time. All right, and I've said in terms of a reality sense, money talks, right? I mean, I'm completely honest about it. I openly talk about money. This farm costs me about $1,500 a month, and it makes me about $11,000. Is that all of the money that I make? No, it's not. If I were to legitimately just sit on cash, let's just say at the end of the year, December 31st, I determined I just want to sit on cash, right? I just want to sit on cash. Oh my God, you haven't made any money unless you have cash, right? The most idiotic thing that you could, possibly, one of the stupidest things that you could believe in terms of financials. Oh my God, cash, right? And let's say I just sat on cash. Let's say December 31st, I just liquidated all of my investments. I said, you know what? I don't want to run my business anymore. I just want to sit on cash. How much cash would I have? Probably somewhere around $250,000 and $350,000. Somewhere around there, probably. Is there a reason to do that? No, there is not. What am I going to do with that? I would rather have my business. I would rather have my cattle. I would rather have whatever, my land, whatever it may. I would rather have my investments. All right, it's not, oh my God, cash. It's the most worthless thing that you could possibly, one of the most worthless things that you could believe in terms of financials. Is it important that you generate positive cash flow? Absolutely. It is important. You don't want to be negative cash flow. You don't want to be, burning, you don't want to be, spending more cash than you make. But after that, the cash is not really even going to do anything. What am I going to do? Go and, whatever, right? I mean, what am I going to do with that? It's not going to do anything, right? I would rather have my investments. I get tax benefits for having these investments. My assets, appreciate profitably. I actually make a positive net return on this. When you take a look at my numbers as they are right now, in terms of just what my numbers are, I mean, honest to God, this farm, maybe it cost me $1,500 a month. And maybe, let's say 1,000, let's just even just highball the number. Let's just say 1,500 to 2,000, which I'm not going to use $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month would be ridiculous. $2,000 a month would be like me buying 4 tonnages of fertilizer every month. I'm not going to spend $2,000 a month on this farm. $2,000 a month is ridiculous. $2,000 a month is what I spend when I legitimately have to put my animals on entirely a commodity feedstuff. I legitimately buy premium priced commodity feedstuffs, and I feed 100% of their diet. That will put things in perspective. Like legitimately, I've talked about, the corn in this area is effectively sold at a premium. Feedstuffs in this area are sold at more than the market average. And even then, if I legitimately put my animals on a 100% commodity feedstuff mix, I legitimately fed them a total mixed ration for their entire diet, that would cost me about $2,200 a month, about $2,300, $2,000 a month. If I were to go and buy $2,000 worth of fertilizer, that would be 4 tonnages. That would be almost 4,000 units of fertilizer. All right, I'm not, honest to God, this farm maybe cost me $1,500 a month. Okay, it cost me about $1,500 a month. Let's just say 2,000, just to 1,500 to 2,000, just so that I am definitely not incorrect. And my revenue, the amount of money that I make is effectively, I make almost, if I were to just legitimately sit on cash at the end of the year, I just said, I just want to give up the farm. I don't want to run cattle anymore. I just want to be an idiot. If I don't have cash, I don't have money.
right? I'm gonna go and be an idiot. And I sat there with cash. How much cash would I have at the end of the year? Probably about $250,000, maybe 250, 350,000. All right, maybe I make about $30,000 a month, $25,000 a month. All right, I can effectively pull $10,000, $11,000 a month out of my business and not cause any damage to my business. All right, that's effectively how the numbers work out. That's why I did it like that. And it's plenty of cash. I can do whatever I want, right? It's already effectively enough money to do anything. All right, but I'm gonna go on and get on out of here, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.